Hi, this is Carson with Troy, and I have with me Jonathan Yanez. Now, Jonathan, thank you so much for getting back on with me. This is the first time that I have interviewed somebody that I've previously interviewed, so you're my first second timer. So I appreciate you getting on with me again. Now, for those who haven't listened to his previous episode is episode 10 on my Spotify. I still have the video recording of that, and I'm going to put that out right before this comes out. So it'll be like chapter one, chapter two, and it'll be like 2 years apart since we've talked. So this is going to be kind of cool to see what he has done, how he's grown, some things that have changed, and he has come out with a lot of stuff since March of 2021. Now I'm going to not touch on everything, but for those of you who are interested, Jonathan has some of his series. He does both science fiction and fantasy. Forsaken Mercenary is one of his series. Gateway to the Galaxy, fantasy series Hunters for Hire. Some of his books that recently came out this year. Galactic Guardian, Dark Star Deceit came out in April. Um, that's book 5 of Galactic Guardian. Book 6 is coming out later. Well, actually, not this month, but July 1st. Just this month, Legends Online Zenith came out June 3rd. Am I correct in that? So
Yeah. Good note taking.
that's just a taste of what he's done. I mean, he is so prolific. He's also okay. He's also came out with a podcast recently called House of Wolves. So follow him on that, and that you host with your wife, correct?
Correct.
And then last but not least, I think this is the coolest of all. Not that anything's not cool, but he has produced a short film, Infinity Systems, that he's taken to film, not competitions, just
Film
festivals,
festivals.
film festivals. Yeah, and you've won awards on that as well.
Yeah.
You've ran a successful Kickstarter for that. So it's going to be fun to talk to you about, the process of that, what it takes to get a movie made. And on that, you wrote it, you produced it, you starred in it, short star. You're an actor, a producer, a writer. So Jonathan, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself that I haven't covered.
For sure. I want to start off just by saying thanks, Carson. Like, thanks for having me on again. Episode 10, like you're saying, it was about 2 years ago. So it's been really cool for me to see you continue to grow and be disciplined and put in the work to see your podcast grow. It's really cool to see your friends succeed. Like, I think that's how you can tell a true friend. Like, when you see somebody succeeding, there's nothing in your heart but happiness for them. So congratulations, man. It's
Well,
really
thank
cool
you.
that yeah, man, to see you grow from like what it was and what it is now, and to imagine like if you keep it doing this, what it could be.
Now that's all what it's about, right? Is to continual growth.
Yes, and surrounding yourself with those people who are also continuing to grow. Like you and I don't talk every week or every month, but I know that you're working. I know that you're grinding, that you're hustling, and every once in a while we'll exchange like a quick message or something like that. And I feel like that's a good friendship to have. Like iron sharpens iron, where you
Mm-hmm.
know your friend is out there hustling, working just as hard as you are. And when you get to hang out again, when you get to talk to each other, it's like no time went by.
Right, exactly. And it's fun because um, when I first interviewed you, I didn't know you from Adam, right? And we got a chance to talk. We actually got to meet, I think, in 2021 in November at 20 Books of 50K. I was able to meet you and your wife, and that was a fun meeting. And like you said, iron sharpens iron. If you don't know what 20 Books of 50K is, it is a conference and a Facebook group where, like you said, iron sharpens iron. It's a place where people can go and learn from each other and strengthen each other and help each other succeed in this business. So that was fun talking to you. And I think you actually confided in me that you were doing Infinity Systems back then. And I don't think you launched Kickstarter yet, but that you were going to. And I was excited for you then. So let's talk about this Infinity Systems. Okay, how did this go about? Like what sort of things were you like? Okay, I see this in my head. I want to come. I want it to come to fruition, like I talked about before. What steps did you take in order for that to succeed?
Oh man, I feel like so many times in life we wait for permission to do things. So I remember like when I was starting to write novels, I thought I had to go get an agent. I thought I had to go, get a traditional publishing house. So I spent so many years doing that, and I did. I got a publishing house, but then after, you know how they say the grass is greener on the other side. So after I saw kind of like what that was and what that meant and how much money that they were taking, So I thought to myself, hey, I could do this myself. So I started our own publishing company, started publishing our own books, and then fast forward 11 years later, everything has worked out really well. So when we approached film, kind of like, hey, what can we do next? We're always trying to grow and push ourselves out of our comfort zones. So we're like, hey, what should we tackle next now that we kind of understand this publishing thing? Okay, what about film? And then the same thing with film, like, hey, you could try to go pitch and you could try to go get an agent for film. You could try to go get like a production company or studio, and that's definitely one road you can go. Or you cannot wait for a gatekeeper to give you permission to write your story or do your work and go do it yourselves. So we went ahead and launched Kickstarter, which was awesome. The community came out and supported us. I wrote our sci-fi western, and we shot it. It came out last year in June. We had our premiere, and then we went on a film festival run for the last year. So we won 3 different awards, and then I think we got entered into five nominations and 3 wins. So it was really cool to see all that happen, and it's easy for me to brag about Infinity System because I feel like very little of it was me. Like, yeah, I wrote it, but the actors did such a good job elevating the lines that I wrote, and then the director did such a good job. The From like set design to costuming to the sound to the sound effects and the music to the CGI, like everything at every level, it kept on getting elevated and better and better and better. So yeah, the crew did an awesome job.
No, it was a fun film. Um, I was watching it, and I don't know, I'm not technical. I love movies, but I don't know the technical words for things. And so, like when I was watching it, there was a scene where Wayne was burying his co-pilot. That's not a spoiler. That's like right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And like the cinematography of it, it was it had this black silhouette with him kneeling, and it was like a gold sunset with like 2 moons. And I was like, man, that could be a poster. Like that was so fantastic. Like that was just an awesome scene. And I don't know, is that cinematography or what is, I don't know what that's called, but like whoever did that, like the shots of the world was amazing as well. Not only just they created this world that felt real and came to life. So not only was the acting good, Depp was one of my favorite characters. I just loved him. It's a fantastic film overall. Now, how did you come to a relationship? I mean, you wrote it with the director, whose name is Matthew
Charles
Hall.
Hall.
Yeah, Matthew
Yeah.
Charles Hall. How did that relationship begin, and how is it writing a screenplay compared to a novel?
So early on, right before the pandemic, I was trying to get something going with film, kind of like unraveling. Like I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a cinematographer was. I didn't know the different types of producers or like line producers, executive producers, associate producers. I didn't understand any of it. So I'm trying to like educate myself, reaching out to different people. So a company had actually reached out to me to film Forsaken Mercenary, and they were introducing me to directors and writers. And I asked them how they found my work, and they had found my work through Amazon. um, that didn't work out because of the pandemic. It kind of everything fell apart. So afterwards, I'm like, okay, instead of waiting again by chance somebody might happen to reach out to me, it's time for me to do some work and get a project of my own rolling. So I met our director through a mutual friend, and we started like throwing out ideas of what we wanted to do. We both like space westerns, so we decided to kind of do a space western together. And then when I wrote the script writing for me personally, everybody's different, but for me personally, writing script is so much easier than writing a novel because a novel, I write around 80,000 words for a novel, where a script for a feature length movie is like for an hour and a half is what I'm talking about. An hour and a half feature length movie is like 17,000 words compared to 80,000 words. So, and then with Infinity System is only 33 minutes long. So it was only actually like I think it was 27 pages of script. So it was even less. So for me, writing scripts is much easier than writing novels. I think if it had been the other way around, it would have been much harder, right? Because then I'd be used to writing, 17,000 words in the script and then have to go write 60, 80,000 words in a novel.
So, I mean, it brings its own challenges as well. I mean, you said it was easy, because it's less work, but you also have to describe so much more in less. It's kind of like writing a comic book, right? Like you have so much dialogue, but everything else is visual. So, how are you able to maintain the story through the written word and create that world?
Yeah, it's such a collaborative process. So different. This part is so different from writing a book where when I'm writing a novel, it's just me. It's just me in my office and my imagination, hallucinating to these characters and, and these scenes. Where a movie is such a collaborative process. Where I think the busiest day on set, we had around 60 people that we were in charge of, from like cast and crew and extras and everybody else. So it's a lot of trust. It's a lot of me writing the words, trusting that the director and I have the same vision, then trusting that the director is going to work with the cinematographer to set up those different shots that he wants and that they're on the same page, and then trusting the actors that the actors understand like what these characters are supposed to be feeling. So it's scary, but I feel like anything worth doing should be a little bit scary. Like if you're going out of your comfort zone. So it's definitely scary because from like the business point of view too, each day we were shooting, was like a $10,000 day. There's like $10,000 invested into people being there, equipment, camera rentals, the location fees when we shot at that like cowboy western town. So like things had to happen. there was no like, okay, well if things don't work out, we can do this another day. There's like none of that. Like the train had left the station, Carson. This had to happen. So that was definitely scary, but also kind of fun, also a little bit thrilling, kind of like a roller coaster ride. A little bit scary, but also fun.
Well, that takes a lot of communication between you and the director and the actors. Um, for those of you who want to, produce movies or make movies, you as a producer, how much control did you have? What sort of role did you have as a producer? I mean, you wrote. I mean, the director's kind of in charge of kind of that aspect of it. But what is your role as a producer for those people who don't know?
Yeah, so think of like a producer as a publisher. So a producer is the business end, putting all the pieces together. So the producer would kind of like Carson, if you and I were going to go on a spaceship and we were going to go on an adventure, the producer would be kind of like the owner of the ship, and then the director might be like the pilot of the ship, and then you would have your different cast and crew be different members around the ship. So what a producer does is basically like, okay, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, and then the producer assembles a team around them that can go ahead and execute this specific vision.
So, like you said, about $10,000 a day, like, it's a lot writing as a producer. That's kind of scary. Now,
Yeah.
one of the first things that you said in our first interview was like you have a motto, like how hard could it be,
Yeah.
or
Yes.
something like that. Like, is that kind of like your same motto? Like, oh, like how hard could it be? And like, oh man, this is hard. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think about that now, but so still I still do think about that. Like, how hard could it be? We could do this. But now I'm actually looking for hard things to do. Gauge on if I want to take on a project. Like I don't want to do easy things anymore. Whether I'm exercising or whether I'm working, like the gratification or the growth. There's not a whole lot of growth in easy things. A fair share of Netflix. But if I'm sitting down on the couch watching Netflix, there's not a whole lot of growth happening in those moments. That's more of like relaxing. So when I'm working, I want to do those hard things. So I look. Fear is now like my north star. I look to see what scares me. Like when I acted in Infinity System, I was petrified. I couldn't sleep the night before. It was going to be my first time on camera. Like I wasn't nervous about being in front of the cameras. I was, because I'm so hard on myself. I was just nervous about letting everybody down. Such a good job. The whole cast and crew were doing such a good job. Like I didn't want to be the weak link in the chain.
right now, was that something that you were going to do from the beginning? Were you like, I have this part that I kind of want to do, or was that kind of a decision later on?
No, no, I definitely want to do it because I know it would be horrifying. It'd be horrifying for me to stand there in front of, the whole cast and crew with the lights and the camera and stuff like that and go ahead and become this character. Because for me, writing is easy. And even if it's not, I just tell myself that lie. Writing is easy, right? I've been doing it for breathing. Writing is fun. Writing's easy. Producing is the fun part too. Producing is exciting for me. Because again, like things go wrong. I can tell you some stories. Things went wrong every day on set, and we just had to adapt and we had to overcome, and then acting is the part that terrifies me.
That's amazing that even everything that you've been through, like something still scares you. And like for lots of people, acting would be the fun part, right? Like, oh, I want to be an actor. I want to go to Hollywood. I want to go to New York and act on Broadway. But like for you, that was the scary part. So it's kind of backwards. Like not necessarily backwards, but like opposite of what people dream about, right? Like people are like, oh, I want to be an actor. or I want to be up on stage or do something like that. But for you, you're more of a um, behind the scenes type of guy. It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, I think as writers, like we're just in our heads by ourselves. Typically, I think writers are introverts for the most part. Kind of, we recharge when we're on our own doing our own things. And when we're out extroverting, it kind of drains our battery a little bit. So it was the same thing for me when I was on set, but I knew that it was something super scary, so I knew I had to do it. So we're gonna do it again as we're preparing for our next film. I wrote myself a bigger role this time, so I keep I keep on pushing myself, and I think that there's some value in that, and there's some joy to be found in the grind when you're doing things that are very difficult, but you know you should be doing them. On the back end of them, there's a lot of gratification.
No, that's very wise words. When you're attempting something, the completion of a project and knowing that what you saw in vision is coming to fruition is very valuable and very gratifying, not only to accomplish it, but to give you confidence to pursue the next thing. And so, what you said before, like this constant growth, each little step has led to the next one. To where now, like you said, you're doing doing the next film where you're written yourself a bigger role. Are you going to run another Kickstarter for that?
Yeah, so the first Kickstarter went so well, and we had no idea of what we're doing, right? Like, if anybody's listening to this podcast, whatever you're doing now, and you think like, oh, I'm not sure how to do that, just go for it. There's not going to be a perfect time. There's not going to be like, okay, next year, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Next year, I'm going to take this leap of faith, or I just have to get some money saved and do something else, and then I'm going to take this leap of faith. Jump now because it's never going to be a perfect time. So when we did our first Kickstarter for Infinity System, never ran a Kickstarter before. We had no idea what we were doing, but we put in the work, and our community came out to support us. So this time around for Forsaken Mercenary, now we actually understand what we're doing. We've been talking with Kickstarter, the actual company. We have a rep there who's helping us, and our community has grown by leaps and bounds. So this time around, we have complete confidence that we'll be able to fund a pilot episode for Forsaken Mercenary.
Now, do you know when that Kickstarter is going to run?
Yeah, so we're gonna launch on July 11th, and then it'll run for a month, so to August 10th.
Okay, so this episode's coming out July 14th. So your Kickstarter will be up and running. So people who are watching or listening, go support it. Go find the Kickstarter page and support it so that we can get this going. And it was a fun show that I watched, and I hope we can get it going so that we can see more of it.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so with Infinity System, again, like so many doors were opened with Infinity System because I'm still writing novels. I'm still writing science fiction fantasy. But now with Infinity System out there, we have agents representing us and we have entertainment lawyers. So our agent with Infinity System thought like, hey, does this exist in a book series? And I said, no. So she said, let me go pitch this to one of the big publishing houses and get it picked up as a book series first. And then that will help launch Infinity System as like a TV show to a streaming service because they'll add some credibility seeing that it was picked up by a big publishing house for a series. So while that's going on with Infinity System, like we're so happy with her and the team that we're working with, and things are moving, and conversations are happening. In the meantime, that's where the opportunity for Forsaken Mercenary came around. We're like, okay, so Infinity System is on a good path, but instead of just like hanging out's not really in our nature. Instead of just like hanging out and twiddling our thumbs, what else could we do? And that's when the Forsaken Mercenary conversation started happening. What would it look like now that we know so much more? Because don't get me wrong, I thought Infinity System was great, but that was our first project. And like anything in life, is you continue to do it more and more often. You get your skills sharpened, you get better and better. So with Forsaken Mercenary, I think we can maybe up the ante a little bit and give something new and fresh that people haven't seen before.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. And like you said, like you're not just sitting on your laurels. You're continuing writing. I mean, I mentioned three books that have came out this year. I don't know if there's more. I mean, that's all I could find. But you are constantly working. What is a typical day like for you? Like, how many words do you write? How much do you take care of your family? I mean, how do you find balance?
Yeah, so we actually homeschool too.
Oh, wow.
So two, yeah, we have two little ones that are homeschooled, 7 and 3. So I wake up at 5 a.m. because it's easier for me to get the work done when the house is quiet. So at 5 a.m. I wake up, no excuses. The alarm goes off, and I almost feel like I'm a boxer. And when the alarm goes off, it's like that ding ding for like a new round, and you have to like answer the bell, right? So I wake up, and I have about 2 hours. I mean, the kids could wake up at 5:30. Who knows? They've done that before. They could wake up at 7:30 and get some extra work in. But I just think like, okay, it's not anybody else's fault. This is all on me. Like I need to focus. I typically have about 2 hours. They typically wake up around, sometime around 7. So I have 2 hours of grind. It's just, no distractions, just laser focus. If I'm working on a novel, what I do is I write 4,000 words a day, and I'll break that up into 1,000 word sprints. So I'll write 1,000 words. Usually takes around 20 to 30 minutes for me to get 1,000 words in, and then I'll take a break. Then grab some coffee. If the kids are up, go play with the kids. Feed the pets, the dogs and the cat, whatever it might be, and then I'll get back into it, and then do another sprint. That's when I'm writing, and then when I'm editing or when we're creating films, it is a similar process. Like I feel like with writing, I need those breaks in between or with working on films or with editing, I can go without having those, breaks so often.
I like that. And what you said, you work in sprints. So for anybody who's watching or anybody who's listening, um, 1,000 words in 20 minutes is fast. Um, you don't have to do that. Like if you get 100 words in or 200 words in, those continue to add up and you'll be able to get a novel done. For those of you who are in a different medium like art or whatever, even if it's 20 minutes of working a day, like those little moments add up over time. So that if you want to become an author or an artist or whatever medium you want to work in, find the time to get 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I know most of us, Jonathan, you are a full-time author, right?
Correct.
So most people aren't, as they're beginning their journey, aren't like that, right? Now you were kind of unique. You, if I remember right, you pulled your 401k, didn't tell your wife, quit your job with your motto, how hard could this be? And you went full in, like you jumped in the deep end. Most people won't do that, but the advice that you gave, like in 20-minute sprints, 30-minute sprints, they can still accomplish what you did over time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Most people are sane, which is a good thing. Most people are sane and would not just quit their job without any inkling of what they're going to do and cash in their life savings to make this work. But I agree with you. I feel like the only person that you should compare yourself is to the person you were yesterday. Are you better? Have you taken steps to better yourself from who you were yesterday? So exactly like what you said, if people are just starting out, it doesn't matter how how hard you work or how much time you put in each day, as long as you're consistent. I feel like people are too hard on themselves on what they could accomplish in 1 year and not optimistic in what they could accomplish in 10 years if they kept at this. So what I tell a lot of people, I used to be a personal trainer. So what I would tell a lot of people at the gym, like they couldn't do one push-up. I was like, okay, that's fine. Like let's get on your knees and do some knee push-ups. And over the course of time, we were able to build them to the point where they can, punch out a dozen push-ups on their hands and feet, just normal push-ups. And it wasn't that the exercise got any easier; it's that they got stronger. And I think the same thing works with art. It's not like the art in front of you, whether you're an artist or whether you're writing a book, gets any easier. It doesn't. It's the same work. You're just getting stronger through time and through discipline. So exactly like what you said, that's exactly what I tell people. Even if you could just get 100 words in a day, if you can get 100 words in a day consistently, then you can start building on that. But everybody needs somewhere to start.
Going off of that, like things are always messy. Like if some you can't do a push up and you go down to your knees, that's that's some people might think that's beneath them, especially like guys, because we were always taught growing up. I'm of an age where, if you went down on your knees, those were quote unquote girl push-ups, right? Like, but forget all that. Like things are supposed to be messy at first. When you wrote your first draft, I'm sure it was not that great, unless you're perfect. when you
No,
when
yeah,
you
definitely wasn't that great.
right, and that's I think people stop their progress because they're like, well, this is horrible. But I think that continued growth is something that you need to keep in mind. Like your first draft is not supposed to be perfect. It's not supposed to be nice. Um, but if you keep going and you keep editing, you will continue to grow and become better as you're doing it. I always give the analogy like you can't steer a parked car. Like if you have nothing on the page, like you can't go anywhere. So even if it's little movement, you can steer a car, even if it has a little bit of momentum. Get that momentum building, and then you'll be able to continue on and live your dream. So, what has changed in the last 2 years? I mean, you're a very prolific writer. Do you still world build the same? Do you still outline the same, or have you changed things up?
Yeah, so I'm actually a well. First of all, I'm going to use that from you if that's okay with you. You can't steer a parked car. That's going to go in a book. That's probably
Good,
going to go in my next book.
good.
So you'll know when you see it, you'll know it was you. So over the last couple years, my book writing has kind of slowed down. So I slowed down to releasing 4 books a year, and that's a good balance between writing 4 books and anytime I'm not writing, we're working on film stuff now. So I think like end game for me, end goal, and 2 or 3 years from now, I'd still like to release 2 novels a year, but then also have 2 film projects released, whether they're TV shows or movies or whatever they might be. So we can start building that side of our business. But with outlining and the creative process for writing books, I've never been an outliner. So what I'll do is maybe I'll have an idea of what I want to happen in the story in the book, so I'll just write down maybe like 4 or 5 things. Like, okay, I know at some point I really want an enemy to be killed. I've always wanted to do this. Want an enemy to be killed by a wrecking ball. I haven't done that yet, right? I always wanted the wrecking ball to fall on the bad guy. So like I'll write that, okay, enemy killed by wrecking ball. I really like the name Triton for like a secret organization. So I'll just have like 3 or 4 things like I really like, and then I'll just start writing. And I'll follow the character along. And then when he does meet this secret organization, I'm like, oh, that's Triton. And I put the Triton name in there. Right at the end of the book, I'll be like, okay, this is the part where the villain's going to get killed by that wrecking ball is going to fall on him at the construction site. So different things like that. So when I'm writing a novel, I'll fall asleep thinking what I'm going to write the next morning. And when I wake up, it's almost like, I've already written it. I already know what's going to happen. So there's no like sitting at my keyboard, like, I'm not really sure. Does this work or doesn't work? I can already see the scenes in my head playing out, and I'm just writing it down.
So I'm gonna kind of go back to your day. So you wake up at 5. Do you immediately? I know you work out. Do you immediately work out and then write, or do you write and then go work out?
So yeah, so over the years, I've trained myself to be able to work out at any time. So usually when I wake up, I do my writing first, but sometimes I'll be working out, at like 9 or 10. Sometimes it might be like 11 or 12. I try to get it done in the morning, and sometimes, things happen, doesn't work out, so I have to do it in the afternoon. But usually sometime in the morning before lunch.
Okay, so usually you write first.
Yes.
Okay, so you know, as long as you're getting that done, like if you want a writer, if you want to be a writer and make this your career, you get up and do it first thing in the morning, right? So it's at a consistent time. I think that too is important. Like you set aside a time to write and get that done, whether that's 100 or 1,000 words or whatever you want to do. You do 4,000 words in a day. Um, so I wanted to ask you what you did to see if you have a consistent routine and a consistent plan. I think that for most people, they can do that. Like if, whether it's in the morning when they first get up or at night when they get off work, if they're working or whatever. I think this is a valuable key and a valuable trick or tip that somebody can do is like, if you only have a half hour, find whatever half hour, whether it's lunchtime, morning, in the afternoon, and write. Um, and I like what you said, like thinking about that as you're going to bed so that you know kind of what you're like your boys in the basement, the subconscious is going to work. So when you wake up, whether that you're writing that first thing or later on in the day, you already have an idea of what you're going to write, and that's fantastic advice. But I will put a caveat, like find a time where you could write every day and stay consistent.
Yeah, for sure. I tell people all the time, people ask me like, how do you stay motivated? Like, I'm not feeling motivated. How do you stay motivated? I tell them like, motivation has nothing to do with what's happening here. Just like luck has nothing to do with what's happening here. Like I hear other people saying like, oh, I was just lucky. Good for them. Like I'm happy for you. I'm happy that you found all the luck and you got lucky. Like with us, it's just been like grind and hard work. There's been no luck. There's been no feeling motivated. So I tell people all the time, like, take motivation out of your vocabulary. It's discipline, because discipline will show up all the time. Motivation is kind of like up and down, how you feel day to day, but discipline is every single day. It's there for you. So discipline, I tell people, will take you places that motivation could never take you.
That's great advice. And you kind of hinted at, I'm going to clear things up. If you waited to do things when you feel like it, nothing will ever get done.
Yes, amen.
So, so do that. And I like what you said with your outline. Like you said, you're not really an outliner, but you kind of are. And I've talked to enough people to where I don't think anybody's like really an outline. Well, there might be some, but the most people that I talk to aren't really an outliner and aren't really a pantser. Like most people are like you, and they'll have like events they want to do. They want like things they want to hit, and they'll write to those points. And so I think you're kind of in a majority of people. Even, I've talked with people like Chris Fox or Dan Wells, and they all have like different outlining principles or different styles. But when I talk to them, it's like the exact same thing. Like they have different points that they kind of want to hit that they think you're cool and right to those points. I have talked to people where I'm going to backtrack a little bit where they do outline. Like they have chapter one and they have a little summary, chapter two and they have a little summary, but lots of times those goes off the rail too, because characters kind of, for those of you who haven't written before, characters kind of have a mind of their own. Even though you're controlling them, like they kind of do their own thing. So you're kind
No,
of in the
100%.
majority.
Oh, for sure. I heard a really cool analogy. I forget who it was, but they were saying kind of like imagine that you're on the street and it's super foggy. Super foggy, you can't really see a whole lot. But in the distance, you see a street lamp and you can kind of see the illumination. So you're going towards that street lamp. And while you're going towards that street lamp, you might see some people walking by the street that you didn't see before. Maybe a dog, you see a dog in the distance that you didn't see before as you're going through this fog towards the light. And that's kind of like what writing's like. Like you have a destination in mind that you're going towards, but along the way, you might run into some characters that you didn't expect to see. And I feel like that's a sign that you're doing it correctly when you're surprised as a writer, like the story is taking on a life of its own, and you're getting to meet characters that you didn't plan or events are unfolding that you didn't foresee.
Now, that's a fantastic visual of having that fog around you and seeing just a dot and you walk towards that. I'm going to paint another visual that I really like is when you're driving at night, you can only see a little bit in front of you, but you go to that point, what happens? Another 100 yards or so clears up. The same idea, just different visuals in your head for those people who like to visualize different things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's keeping it a fun adventure for me, I feel like has helped me through the last 11 years and has kept me hungry, to go the next 11 years to keep on writing because it's fun. It's almost like playing a game because I only have, a few certain key points that I think will happen in the story. But the other stuff is just like me right there along with the characters as, explosions are happening and conspiracies are being unfolded and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm immersed almost like in a D&D campaign. Like I'm immersed in the journey with these characters and things are happening that I didn't see.
Well, you mentioned this. How do you keep it fun? Like, how do you wake up and not be like, oh man, I got to do this again? How do you keep it fun?
Oh, I get excited. I get excited about work. Like I feel like if you love what you do, then you don't need a whole lot of, again, motivation, right? Not even if you love what you do, I feel like a discipline does play a key. Don't get me wrong, but it's like I want to do it. So there are definitely days, in the minority of days where I'm like, oh, I don't feel like working out, or I don't feel like working or writing, and that's when the discipline is key. But for the most part, I wake up like super excited to work. Like I woke up super excited. I had two things to mark off the list, and then I was going to hang out with you. After this, I'm going to work out, and then I have another item to mark off the list. But it's like fun and it's exciting for me. Um, I feel like a lot of people aren't able to do what they love for a living. So I don't take this opportunity that I have lightly. I had worked at a job that I didn't love before I cashed in my 401k and decided to go on this crazy adventure. So I know what it's like to work a job that I don't like, that I don't love. So I would say to myself, if I put that many hours and that much effort into a job I didn't like, how much more effort, how much more time could I put into this job that I really love?
So let's talk about that. You say you want to produce like, right now, 4 books a year. So, what is your schedule like as far as production? We talked about your kind of your day. Um, to what do you have to do to produce 4 books a year? Like how long do you plan on writing each book? How long do you edit? How long do you find a cover or cover artist and market that?
Yeah, so we're always rolling. It's not like so I work from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. and my workout times in there. I'll take breaks to go hang out with the family and stuff like that. But 5 to 1 is like an 8 hour day, and I do that 6 days a week. So I work Saturdays too. I take Sundays off to rest. So between 5 and 1, I'm always working. So that means if I'm finished with a novel at 10 o'clock, I roll right into the next book or right into the next project. It's not like time off, like, oh, okay, I finished the my workload at 11 o'clock. So from 11 to 1, I'm going to, go play video games, even though I love video games. I'm going to work on that next project. So always working. So we're doing 4 books a year right now. And that means I'm writing books at about 80,000 words. And that takes about a month for me, a month of just grind in the words. Then I edit for about 1 to 2 weeks. And then it goes to my editor. And she has it for a couple weeks, comes back to me to go through again. Then it goes to our beta readers for them to go through, and it comes back to me so I could go through it again. So the writing process is about a month, and then the editing process is around a month as well, maybe 5 weeks, depending on it. So I'm always kind of like uh, projecting ahead of what we're going to need. So while I do the writing, my wife actually works for our company too. So she does the covers. So she's working with the cover designers at the same time to make sure we have certain covers at certain times. So we know, like for Galactic Guardian 6, that was coming out July 1st, I had dates where I needed to have it finished written and I need to have it finished edited. And on her end, on her calendar, she has dates like, okay, this is when the cover needs to be finished, and then this is when we're tracking to launch it. So all the ads need to be ready and ready to go because she does our ads as well.
So that's something that somebody's starting this journey and they want to be an indie author. They might not realize what they need to do, right? They just, oh, I want to produce a book and I see all these on Amazon, like, but you have certain dates and certain goals that you are trying to get things done. And for those of you who are beginning the journey, um, if this is your first book and you've never written a book before, um, it might take a little bit longer than what Jonathan's doing here. But come to realize that things take time and you need to get these things done in order to be successful as an indie author. So writing, editing, finding a cover artist, marketing the book, these are things that might be new to you. What advice would you give to somebody who's new and doesn't realize, like, or not necessarily not realize, but like they want to market their book or they want to find a cover artist? What are some things that you could share with them or some tips or tricks?
There's a ancient samurai. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he has a really cool saying, and it goes like this: "At first, it's hard, but at first, everything is hard." And that's like so true, right? No matter what you do, whether you're trying to write a book, learning to ride a bike for the first time, learning how to drive a car for the first time, learning how to act for the first time, right? Like it's all going to be hard at first, but it's supposed to be hard at first. There's a process, right? And as you do it more and more, you get better and better and more comfortable at it. So the same thing with somebody who's, looking to write or publish a book for the first time. I know it's going to be hard, but that's okay. You're capable of doing hard things. I tell my daughter all the time, like when she needs help doing something, I'm like, do you really need help doing that? Or is it just like an easier thing to ask me for help and then I come do it for you? So she has a playset outside. When she was younger, she was afraid to get down off the playset. And it was safe. I'm not putting her on like a 2 story or 3 story playset. We're not doing that. She was a few feet off the ground, but she was calling for help. And I told her from a young age, I'm like, hey, nobody's going to come to help you. But there's good news. You are capable of doing this yourself. So I was there watching her, and then she realized, like, hey, she's gonna have to do this on her own, and she got down off the playset by herself. So I feel a lot of authors or artists might be scared, like, hey, that this is a hard project that they're taking on, and it is hard, but it's okay. There's hope. Have faith that you are going to be able to do hard things.
That's awesome. That's great advice. So, Jonathan, you started a podcast. Um, Go ahead and tell people about that and what they can find if they listen to it. And
Oh
how's
yeah,
that
so we
been?
started. Yeah, we decided we didn't have enough going on. So we decided we decided to do a podcast. And like here's a good example of us learning, right? Something that's super hard. So at first when we started, we thought like, okay, we're gonna do a podcast episode a week. Woo! That was too much. We were biting off more than we could chew, trying to do a podcast episode a week. So what we decided, okay, what can we do right now, especially like with the little ones, and especially with the little ones being homeschooled, right? Because we're always here. So we thought, okay, what can we consistently do? We can consistently do a podcast episode every month. So now we do a podcast episode every month, and that might change, as the kids get older and they grow up a little bit more and they're able to manage themselves. Give us, a half hour quiet so we can go ahead and record. But for now, we're doing a episode every month, and it's basically just kind of like what you and I are talking about now. It's basically just like leveling up, like iron sharpening iron, what we're learning, how we're growing in the industry, the mistakes that we made. Maybe we can share some mistakes that we made so other people won't make the same mistakes. So, as you can imagine, it revolves a lot around publishing and now producing films. And it's fun because I get to do it with my wife, who's my best friend, and we get to talk about how we're growing, and also even about like books that we're reading to help us level up. Like life is so bananas for me that I usually get my reading done through audiobooks. So whether I'm working out or I'm driving somewhere or doing chores around the house, like mowing the lawns, that's when I'll pop in whatever audiobook that I'm listening to see how I can grow and how I can learn. And we talk about those books on our podcast.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Running a podcast is harder than you think, especially if
Yeah.
you got a busy life already.
Yes,
And
exactly. You know it. How do you find how have you found time to fit the podcast in your life? Because I know how busy you are too.
well, for those of you who don't know, I have a full-time job. I work 4 10s. And then I work from 7:30. Well, it's not technically 5 10 or 4 10s, but I work from 7:30 to 5. And then I set aside an hour every night, from 6 to 7, and I do this. And so, today I'm off. So I get to record and hang out with you. But I spend an hour a night, um, editing or doing something with Troy. It's not always, with podcasts. Like I've started doing not interviews, but like book reviews and just different fun things on YouTube. So I try to spend from 6 to 7 doing something like that. So again, it's that consistency, right? It's like doing things every day to build, what your goals are.
Yeah, it's like building a wall, right? Like a brick wall. Like how do you build a brick wall? One brick at a time.
Yeah, no, Great Wall of China. It's built one brick at a time, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it makes a big difference of like if you enjoy what you're doing. So if you enjoy what you're doing, yes, it is still work. Don't get me wrong, but it's like work that you look forward to, or work that's gratifying, and work that you enjoy.
Right. And I am so backed up because at first I did a Zoom call with you back in March, but I wasn't releasing the videos. I was just doing the audio on Spotify. Now I've been trying to go back and get all those videos up on YouTube because I didn't know the first thing about YouTube. I just started doing it like basically 7 months ago, 8 months ago. And so and now I upload them, simultaneously. I do a video on YouTube and at the same time on Spotify or whatever, sort of platform you're listening on. And now I'm trying to go back and get all the old ones up. So like I said, like your previous interview will go up probably on the 7th, probably the week before, so that they can so they can see both on YouTube if they choose to. So that's been fun too. Like I never run out of things to do because I have all those old videos to get up on YouTube, so that it just brings a whole new audience.
Yeah, and like that's kind of like what we were saying before. Like there's no end in sight. There's no finish line, right? But I think where a lot of people think like, oh, that's kind of, a depressing thing. It's not. It's fun because if you finished the race and you had done everything that needed to be done, you had everything that you wanted, like, what would your life look like? But like what you're saying, like there's always work to be done, right? As soon as you figure out something, then like, hey, I can go ahead and go back and put these videos on YouTube now and hit a new audience. And as you continue to grow and expand, there'll be more of those types of opportunities coming out. But there's joy to be found on that. Like the work never ends. That's a
Right.
good thing. I've even so my parents are retired, but even they at retirement try to stay active and do things, right? Because there's been studies showing that a lot of people who retire, if you don't have like a purpose that you're going to, job that you're going to, a purpose, if you're staying busy, if you're just at home, like a certain type of atrophy starts setting in. if you don't have like a purpose that you're driving to. So a lot of people who retire from their jobs, they're not doing anything more anymore. It's easier to fall into a life, to be sedentary, to not be out and moving around as much, not exercising your brain, working on new problems. So again, I think there's a lot of value to staying busy.
No, and my cousin pointed out that my interviews, the way I interview, is kind of evergreen. So like even the old ones, even 2 years ago when I interviewed you, like people can still find value. It's not talking about like, like the latest events that are going on or whatever. It's, you and your writing and how you can help other people and what you've done in the past to learn and grow. So getting those old videos isn't like, oh, like this is 2 years old, it has no value. Like there's still value in what we've talked about before.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like almost like Field of Dreams, like if you build it, they will come.
Right.
Like a lot of people don't give themselves the time to succeed. It's not like they wouldn't succeed, they just gave up too early. They would have succeeded. So I feel like a lot of things like podcasting or writing books or creating films, it will work out. Your people will find you. I tell a lot of authors, the hard truth is that readers find you one at a time. So you're right. You're not usually you don't get 1,000 new readers who are loving your book on a single day. Usually, like you get like one or two people who like will message you after you've been doing this for a while and saying they like your book, and then you'll get maybe one person last week who followed you on your Facebook group, and then one person tomorrow who joins your newsletter. So if you give yourself that time to succeed, you will make it. Just a lot of people give up too soon.
Exactly. No, I was interviewing R. Birdie. I don't know if you know who he is or not, but he made a comment that I thought was very interesting. He said that you're more conceited to think that you won't be successful than if you will be successful, because there's 8 billion people in the world and 1 million fans is like 0.0001% of the population. So you're more conceited to say that you won't be successful than if you say that you will, because there's so many people out there.
No, for sure. I used to think that the odds were stacked against us. But then I realized for the person who doesn't give up, the odds start swinging in your favor, right? So I always think of an analogy like if you close your eyes and you reach into a ball pit, there's 99 red balls and one green ball. You have to close your eyes and you reach in. So 99 times you're going to get a red ball. But I'm willing to reach into that ball pit 100 times. I'm going to keep on going. I'm not going to stop, right? So
Right.
as I pull the red balls out, the odds are slowly starting to swing in my favor that I'm going to get that green ball. And that's what I think a lot of time when we're like chasing deals or actors or talking with studios. I'll take 100 no's, or 99 no's. I'll take 99 no's to get that one yes, because all you need is that one yes.
Exactly. Like there's an old, and I think it's more anecdotal than like true, but like how many times did Edison fail at, making an incandescent light bulb? It was like 10,000 times, but that one time is all it took, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That's why I try to leave people with hope too. Like, yes, for the person who only wants to try once, the odds are not in your favor. If you're going to try something once and then never try it again, but if you're consistent about it and disciplined about it, keep on going, then there's a lot of hope, and you should be excited because the odds start swinging in your favor. Like now, when we're reaching out about new projects, I welcome the no's. Like I'm trying to stack the no's to get through all the no's so I could find my yes, because I
right.
know the yes is out there. I just got to go find it. So it's like, are you willing to do the work? Are you familiar with Grant Cardone?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Grant Cardone has like the 10 times rule, where basically you need to put in 10 times the effort that most people would be willing to do to be able to succeed. And we found that to be so true. Like when we reach out to different actors about different roles, we might need to reach out to 5 or 10 before we get a yes or a response that they're interested in playing a role in our next film. And that's okay. Like, I mean, I think that's just life. And at every stage, we found that to be true. So whether I was like, trying to find an agent for my very first book, I had to reach out to, almost 100 agents to be able to find my first deal, to when we started working on Forsaken Mercenary, reaching out to a bunch of different actors. So here's a fun little thing about Forsaken Mercenary behind the scenes. When we were casting the actors, there are so many actors that want to work because we did an open call for Forsaken Mercenary, sorry, for Infinity System for the role of our villain, Jake. there was 1,400 people
Oh wow.
who submitted. 1,400 people who submitted for that one role.
Wow.
Isn't that bananas?
That's
I
crazy.
felt so bad, man. I felt so bad because I knew what they're going through, right? Like you and I have been told no a lot to get to where we are.
Right.
So it was so bad for me to be on the other side of that table now, telling these people like, "Hey, I don't, no, unfortunately, no, I'm sorry," and stuff like that. It was such a weird experience. I told my wife and our director, I don't want to be in charge of casting anymore. I don't want to cast. You guys cast whoever is right for the roles because it's so hard for me because I've been in their position like throughout my
Hmm.
whole life.
That's crazy. Well, that's exciting. And you have a lot going on. I noticed that you've been doing some book signings and conventions. Are you doing anything this year? Are you going to any conventions?
Oh man. Yeah. So it's so funny that you said that. So this year we're thinking about like, okay, how can we grow? What were we not doing in 2022 that we could be doing in 2023? So our agent now, so we signed an agent with the Infinity system, and she was telling us like how great our audiobook and ebook sales look like, but there's a huge market that we're missing for paperback sales. So we was like, okay, so for paperback sales, we thought like what we could do to help move that needle. So in-person events, right? So in-person events and book signings. So this year we added on five five different events, book signing events. And Carson, we're not talking about like, a pop-up table with a tablecloth. We're like banners and like hundreds of books we're bringing and giveaways and all kinds of stuff. So so many doors have been opened for that. So we've already done two book signings, one a smaller convention here around town, and then we went to WonderCon in Anaheim.
Hmm.
At WonderCon in Anaheim, I was asked to be on a panel, and then we had a booth, and it went so well that WonderCon asked us to come to Comic Con.
Oh,
So for
nice.
people who don't know, Comic Con and WonderCon are owned by the same company. WonderCon is kind of like the little brother. It's a smaller. I think there might have been like 50 or 60,000 people at WonderCon, where Comic Con San Diego was like the big like the big gorilla in the room where I think there's like 170 or 175,000 tickets and they're already sold out. They've been
Yeah,
sold
it's
out
a
for
it's
months
a
and months and
beast.
months. It's a month. Have you been before?
I have not. That's on my bucket list.
I've never been, and it's also been on my bucket list. So when WonderCon asked if we would come and do a panel at Comic Con, I was like, oh my goodness! Like I remember growing up and like watching Comic Con panels on YouTube, right? Because it seems so far away. Like not only would I never go to Comic Con, but to be on a panel at Comic Con seemed like impossible.
Right.
And now here we are. So now we have our panel at Comic Con next month in July, and then also we got a booth there as well.
Oh man,
So
that's exciting.
yeah, dude, it went from like not doing any book signings last year to now being on the panel and having a booth at Comic Con. So we're just trying to grow as much as we can. And these events, don't get me wrong, like they're exciting. There's lots of people around. I would say 90, maybe even 100% of the people that we talk to are super nice. They're super nice at these, conventions, but it's just so draining because it's like 8 to 10 hours on your feet behind the booth, right? Like nonstop, like talking and signing books and stuff like that. But it's been good because we've seen a lot of those people who we met at the booth, like start to follow us, whether they're joining up for our newsletter or start joining us online, like in our Facebook group or on our page and stuff like that. So it's been good to get out there and then start moving the needle on the paperbacks because that was a huge part of the industry for our company that we hadn't really invested in. We didn't know how to move a ton of paperbacks. So now doing those in-person events, again, it's super draining, but also it's fun.
So Comic Con next month. What other ones are you going to?
Yeah, so then we have at that 20 books to 50K event in Las Vegas. Recently, I don't know if they just started last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago they started. They started doing a book signing event that's kind of attached on the last day. So the conventions I think is Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday they have a book signing event. So we'll be at that book signing event as well this year. And then earlier this year, we did one in Florida. Infinity System was shown at a festival.
Oh,
So we
nice.
did a readers meetup. So I reached out to all the readers who were in Florida and we took them out to lunch. And then we went to go watch the movie together. and then it was WonderCon earlier, and then the smaller book signing event here around the area too. So that was the 5 that we did. So
Cool.
I told Jen, I was like, maybe next year we just try 3 or 4.
No, that's exciting. And in-person events are exciting. Like they are a lot of work. Um, I'm going to 20 books to 50K this year. I didn't get to go last year, so I'm excited for this year. So I'll get to see you then. Go ahead and tell people how they can get a hold of you and any social media that they can follow.
Oh yeah, so Facebook and Instagram are probably the best ways. On Facebook, it's just Jonathan Yanez. It's Yanez. If you want to join our Facebook group, it's Jonathan Yanez's Reading Wolves. And then on Instagram, it's just at author Jonathan Yanez. And then for anybody who is interested in checking out the Kickstarter for Forsaken Mercenary, it'll be live when this airs. So if you just go to Kickstarter and type in Forsaken Mercenary, or our company's name is Wolfpack Entertainment, our production company. So you can type in Wolfpack Entertainment. I can give you a link too. Maybe that'll help some people.
Yeah, I'll definitely leave that in the comments or in the notes as well. Jonathan, thank you so much for getting on with me today. I learned a lot from you.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for having me on again.
Thank you for listening to the Troy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, and share with your friends.